your title, what it means in terms of your daily activities. What does a good day look like for you?
Mm-hmm.
Good day. What does a bad day at work look like for you?
Thank you for the question. So what my title means, Director of Development means is I am a film executive at a movie studio. So what that means is, specifically for Warner Brothers, every movie that you've seen that comes out of Warner Brothers has a junior executive and a senior executive on the movie. I'm a junior executive, and so I operate in the capacity of support for the senior executive. So it's my job to make sure that if there's an idea that comes in, that I am creating a writer's list, which is why I said I'm looking for new voices. It's my job once we get that once we get that writer on that project, it's my job also to confer with the writer, to give them notes on their script and help them develop it into something that we may want to make. And then once it gets to a place where we want to make the thing, or we want to make the movie, it's my job to come up with a director's list of people that we may want to direct the project. And again, that's why I'm looking for new voices. And so that's all a part of my job. It's also a part of my job to look for ideas, but that's more senior executives more do that piece of the work. It's also my job to cover film festivals and make sure that I know who the up and coming talent are for those lists that I was telling you about. I typically am reading a lot and watching a lot because of that. And I think on a bad day, I don't get through. There's always something to get done. And so I think on a bad day, I don't get as much done as I'd like to, because there's also meetings. You're meeting with writers, you're meeting with directors. You have your projects that you're managing on a day-to-day basis. I manage about 40 projects. And so it's and they're all in various stages of development or production. So it's just about kind of managing my time and making sure I'm giving them all attention that they deserve to push the boulders up the hill. And obviously support my senior executives.
Right, my name is Seraphine. And the question is, you spoke about how to market ourselves. For lack of better words, I use the word market. How to market ourselves and what we do by using video, YouTube, and social media. Point is, a lot of us do that. And you talk about following, which is not easy to come by aside. Yeah, so my question is, how do you get your content to where you want it to be, for instance, and to Hollywood? Do you always have to wait till that big break comes where someone gets to see it luckily when you go to that film festival? How do you get your content there? Is there someone you can reach? Is there a website you can go to? Aside the social media and everything you mentioned,
Sure.
How do you market your content to the international level? Because it's not easy using social media all the time.
Sure.
Or sending your links to people all the time.
Sure.
Wait for that film festival you mentioned.
Sure. I think it's hard. I think it's hard. I think y'all know that. I think, but it is, the bottom line is what you need to do is find an in, okay? The social media, becoming a viral sensation is just one way to have an in. I always say Hollywood is a bad boyfriend. They're not paying attention to you until you get eyeballs on you. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I have to get to this person. And by the way, that person has been emailing you for for the last 30 days or whatever it is. And so, again, it's just one way to get in. I think film festivals are another way to get in. Fellowships are another way to get in. Finding an agent or a manager, I think, is also very, very important, especially when you're here, because there are many people who don't live in the States, but have representation in the States. And those are the people that are talking to people like me. And so it's really important to try and find an in. It just is, because that's how the business is built. And so I think it's about figuring out what's your best way in. I'm giving you examples of things that we generally look for, and yes, they are hard, but that's the tunnel, right? You could always create your own lane. I don't know what that is though. You'd have to create it, you know what I mean? But these are the kind of, and again, there's no one way to get into the business. There's just not. There's so many people who, created their own space. Like Issa Rae, for example, she was a YouTube star and she became an HBO showrunner and, actor and writer and, hopefully director one day. But she had to create that space for herself. It wasn't like there wasn't someone else that she could point to say, yes, I want to do that, And so you can do that. But I think, again, the things that I'm telling you to do are things that I've seen other people do and that I've actually found talent from in that way. And so that's why I'm saying those things are important. I know it's hard, but, I would think about, or not think about, but I would research who those agencies are. By the way, there's a lot of agents who are international. They're not from the States. And so I think it's about you figuring out how you can get your link into this business. Is there an internship? Is there a fellowship? Is there a contest? Is there some kind of link that you can get to Hollywood? Because that is the way to get in.
All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Dilla. Actually, I have
Okay.
So my first question is this. You made mention that it's easy for anyone to call themselves a director, and anyone that has a camera calls a director. But then you said that what sets them apart is the vision and what they actually execute. Okay. And you also mentioned that in South Africa it's become a hotbed for production.
Mm-hmm.
I want to find out what sets South Africa apart from other countries, and what is it that you can relate to from Hollywood that makes it so good. I don't know, do they have more media houses? What is it about them that makes it very easy in Africa to produce?
So again, I have a limited purview over this because my job is really development and production. So I'm not a physical producer, but what I've heard about what they do is, and what I've seen actually, because when I was at Disney, there was an animation fellowship that there was a South African animation house whose name escapes me at this moment, it's called Triggerfish, that they developed an animation studio there, and they wanted to build a relationship with Hollywood. There's also skilled physical laborers in South Africa. So meaning when the people or Hollywood productions go and shoot in Toronto or Atlanta or New Orleans, right, in the States, New Orleans was not a place where there were studios, right? Which meant people in LA had to travel with the production to New Orleans. But now there are so many people, so many productions that film there that you don't have to travel crew anymore from LA, because people in New Orleans now know how to work on a movie set. And so what happened in South Africa was, I think there's a tax credit is number one, but number two, you have laborers who actually know how to work film sets. And so you no longer have to, you might have to fly some of your crew there, but there's a lot of crew there that actually knows how to work on a movie set. And so that makes it easier and more hospitable for Hollywood productions to go there. The tax credits, and also finding people who are skilled, that know how to work cameras, that know how to light, that know how to do what a movie set requires. So that's really important. And also, obviously, having studios there is also important.
My second question is, when Seraphine was speaking, you said that you were looking for voices.
Sure.
Am I looking for people in Ghana? And what's I looking out for in those people?
Sure. There's actually this really amazing play that I saw in LA by a woman named Jocelyn Bio. And it was about she called it the African Mean Girls. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mean Girls, the movie, but it was basically about a dark-skinned black girl who wanted to be Miss Ghana, and the colorism that she faced because she was the person that they wanted to be Miss Ghana was lighter. It's a comedy, so that's kind of running in the background. But she grew up in New York, but her family is from Ghana. And so she had gone to, or she knew about Ghanaian boarding schools. And so that's where her play took place. And so she is not, her family's from Ghana, right? But she grew up in New York. And so she has a very specific purview about what it means to be an African in America, right? An immigrant from Africa in America. I saw her play and immediately told everyone at the studio about her because I said, the play is really Mean Girls, which is a Tina Fey movie, right? But it has such a specific perspective because of her background that I said, she brings something different to the table than anyone else that I can think of. And if we have a comedy that has to do with women, she would bring such an interesting perspective to it. That's what I mean about a voice, right? Anyone can write a play about, not anyone, but anyone who wants to can write a play or a movie about girls that is funny. But when you bring your specific perspective and experience to that play, you distinguish yourself from the next person who's writing the thing. And those are the kinds of voices that I'm looking for.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, and thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
And then this is a really simple question, I hope. It's about, you were talking about sort of websites and social media and so on. So very practically, in your day-to-day, you're obviously very busy. You click on an interesting writer, I'm a writer, interesting writer website. What do you want to see? Do you want to see a website dedicated to one project, or do you want to see a website that sort of outlines the writer's entire slate? Because I think I've sort of heard divergent opinions on that. Sometimes they want to know something simple about what you're producing. They don't want to know the whole backlog of upcoming projects. So what is it that you want to see?
So I'm looking for several things. Number one, I'm looking for your website to be professional. Number two, I'm looking for a slate of projects, because if you only have one thing, then I'm thinking, okay, this is great, but your next thing could be lame. And so I need to be able to read 2 or 3 things to say this is not a fluke that you wrote something great. It should be something that is consistent, that I can say to my bosses, look at these 3, 4, 5 things that are awesome by this one person. So I would, number one, be looking for a professional website. Number two, I would be looking for a body of work. So generally people will have a tab that says my work or recent work or something like that. I'm looking for any accolades you may have gotten on that work. So whether it won any of the film festivals that I mentioned, or any of the fellowships that I mentioned, whether it got any awards, those things are really important. I'm looking for whether or not you have agency or management representation. I'm looking for, if you don't, very important if you don't, I'm looking for your contact information. Because right now there's a agency, this is actually a really good thing to bring up. I didn't bring this up earlier. There's a conflict right now between the WGA and the agencies. And so
what's the WGA?
WGA is the Writers Guild of America. So generally, if you are a writer in the States, you are part of this Writers Guild. And they basically work on your behalf to make sure you have health benefits, that you're paid a decent wage, etc. But there are writers who are not in the States who are not a part of the WGA. And there's also writers who, as I said, they're not striking, so to speak, but they are not working with their agencies because the agencies and the guilds are in a conflict. And so when I'm looking for those writers, I'm looking for their contact information on their websites. Is the whole reason why I brought that up. And so it's really important for us to be able to reach out to you if we like what we see. And then I would say if you have any links to work, that's when I would say do excerpts. Not the whole play or not the whole, you know what I mean? I would say give a sample of what the thing is.
Thank you very much for coming. It's been amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm an actor.
And I lived in England, and I moved here about 10 years ago. So in England, usually you have an agent, and then when they go to America, they sign up with a manager, and they usually have an agreement.
Sure.
So there's a lot of talent here.
Sure.
I've been here, and there's so much talent here. And what's the reality? How do you make that transition for talent here, getting to America in terms of in film? What is there something that could be done, and how would that be done?
I have no idea. That is so not my lane. But I guess the answer is, for my limited purview on this topic, because I'm not in representation, there are agencies that are based in Los Angeles that have offices outside of Los Angeles. So for example, the CAA, which is one of the biggest agencies in LA, has offices in India because of Bollywood, right? Like, they saw that India was building up their infrastructure, and they built an agency there to say, we better capitalize on this talent, because there's a lot of local language productions here, and they don't really need Hollywood to have those things be successful. And so CA wanted in on that, and they created an office there. I hope that at some point, what is it called? It's not Nollywood. What is it called here?
It's called Nollywood, right?
It is. Is it Nollywood here?
Nollywood and Kumawood.
Okay, Kumawood.
Kumasi
Yeah,
is for Ghana.
got it. Okay.
Kumawood.
Kumawood.
And
Okay.
then Nollywood is Nigeria.
All right. So
Yeah.
hopefully Nollywood and hopefully Kumawood get built up into that.
Africa's media.
Yes.
All
The media landscape in
Yes.
Africa. Hopefully it gets big enough to where that happens. But I think in the interim, I don't know if there are Ghanaian agencies or talent representations here, but I think that would be the first place to start, and then having those people connect with England or with the United States in order to build the bridge. Because again, the onus, we want, let me speak for myself. I want to find new voices and talent, but I sit in Burbank in Los Angeles, right? And so I'm looking for you, the new voice, to be waving your arms like, you're on an island and want to get picked up from an airplane in the sky, right? I'm looking for you to be waving your arms to say, pick me, right? And so I think that agency representation is a really good way, because their job is to sell you. Their job is to put you in front of people like me. And so it's about figuring out how to build the bridge from there to here.
Good morning.
Hello.
My name is Ella Kwendia. I'm a content producer for both radio and television. And I just want to know, are there times where work seems like a burden to you, where you actually get tired of working and waking up in the morning to go to work is like, should I say, a sport? It's not something you enjoy. And how do you overcome such moments? Yes, that's my question.
Of course, we all have those moments, right? We're all human beings. I absolutely have those moments. I think what I spoke about earlier, which is not making sure, but I guess reminding myself how blessed I am to be working in the business that I work in, is the first thing that helps me. Actually, no, the first thing that helps me is I had to eat, and this is how I eat. So let's just be honest. That's the first thing. But yes, the second thing is, I feel really incredibly blessed to be in the position that I'm in and to work in the business that I'm in, because it's really cool to be able to get paid to make stuff up for a living. It's really cool. And it's something I'm so passionate about. And so I remind myself about that first and foremost. And then secondly, I think, it's important to me how African Americans and my culture and my experience is portrayed on the big screen. That's so important to me that that's another reminder for myself to say, well, it's up to you to be at the table to mind that purview. And so that's really important to me as well. But I think it's really about you having your own North Star to be able to say, why am I doing this? You know, there's easier ways to make money for sure, right? So it's about how important is this to you? How bad do you want it? I can't think of anything else I want to do. So that also is a driver and a motivator for me. And so I think you have to ask yourself the same question to stay motivated.
So my question is in relation to the last comment. I was actually excited. You were talking about creating a balance between what you believe in or what you stand for and what you do. And the reason I'm asking the question is because sometimes we content creators or writers tend to, you know, sometimes move with the wave of media. This is what will gain commendation, this is what will bring recognition. I just want to find out if in your line of work you've come across anything that more or less like compromises your beliefs or what you stand for, if there has been any instances like that. And then how you dealt with such situations. Did you just, you know, avoid it totally or just...
Sure. Really great question, and it's the hardest line to walk in this business because you think you will only get one of those tests, but you get those tests all the time. And sometimes those tests are the difference between you ascending and you not ascending. And so it goes back again. So I'm not gonna be specific about what one of the situations was, but I'll say there was someone who is a really renowned person to work with in the business, and they had a project that was coming in that everyone was very excited about, and I was asked to be a part of that project, but it was something that I did not, for me, it did not align with who I am as a person and the kinds of messaging that I want to stand behind. And so I said, I don't think I'm the right person for that project. And I think, listen, at the end of the day, that's a project that people love, people are super excited about, people want to be a part of. It's not for me. And so I think, again, that was the difference between, like you said, being on something that you know is gonna get recognition, that you know being a part of that thing is gonna help your career. I think you have to make the choice for yourself, whether or not it's worth it to you to trade in who you are, what you believe, for that recognition. For some people it is. And by the way, for some things it is. Maybe that it's not a hard line that you take on some of the beliefs you have, but you absolutely will be tested in that way. So it's very important for you to understand where you stand and who you are when you have those kinds of choices. The other thing I'll say, though, you're absolutely right. There are waves that happen, right? There are trends that happen that people want to be a part of. But it's so great when someone can come along and change the narrative, right? So I would say be a person that changes the narrative also. If it's not something that you believe in, be the person that says, what about this idea? Because it's different than what everybody else is saying. People, that may be another way to get your self-recognition.
Hi.
Hello.
I would imagine that in your line of work, you either say no to a lot of people, or see a lot of people, being told no, because a lot of people show up thinking they're ready and they're not be ready. Because building great things take time. And a lot of people have probably experienced overnight sensations, and so they say, "Hey, I have this one project, so I'm ready for Hollywood." Could you speak a little bit about that situation of people not being ready and you having to tell them no? Or how you give people guidance to get themselves ready. But then also an extension of that, if you talk about the fact that not everybody's gonna make it to Hollywood and some people have to take an alternative path, and it's okay to pursue that as well.
Sure, that's a really good question. And I can speak from experience. I came to this business because I wanted to be a writer. And I quickly, when I got that internship that I told you about, I quickly realized that I was not the kind of person, I did not have the constitution to only get money when I sold a project, especially if I was going to have to be competing with people who had long resumes. And then I thought about all the film schools there are in the United States and all of the film schools there are around the world. And I was like, we all want to be writers, we're not all gonna make it. And so I said to myself, what else can I do to be a part of creating stories? And that's been my North Star. It's why I've worked in so many different capacities in my career, because I said to myself, look, you know, the writing thing may not, you know, might be something I do on the side, but that skill set to be able to help create stories is something that has served me well in other capacities. So I would say to anyone who feels like I've been really trying my hand at this thing and it's not working out, I would say to them, how can you create another opportunity for yourself by applying that skill set to another piece of the business? There's so many different facets to the industry that if I were, and not even if I were, when I was coming up, I never pigeonholed myself to one thing, because I always said the film business and the movie business or the TV business is so incestuous that there's no one piece of it that's not gonna help you learn something else. If anything, it's just gonna diversify your experience and make you more competitive with someone who doesn't have that or has a more traditional background. So that's the one thing I would say. The other thing, and this is very, very, very important, Hollywood has a specific culture that is different no matter where you're from. It was different for me coming from DC, coming from Southeast DC. Mm-hmm. It was very different for me to go into Hollywood and communicate with people, because the way that people communicate is very different than how they communicate in Washington, DC, specifically in Southeast DC. We're very direct. It is a very rare experience that you will have a direct conversation in Hollywood. Generally, feedback is gonna come to you indirectly. People are never gonna tell you you're not ready. And crazy enough, they're usually not gonna tell you no. What's gonna happen is you're not gonna hear from them again. Mm-hmm. They're gonna dodge you, you know what I mean? They're going, excuse me. They're going to, they'll say, yeah, absolutely, I'll do the thing you asked me to do, and then they'll never do it. Like that's feedback for you. That is them saying you're not ready. That's them saying I didn't love your material. And what you have to do is learn how to read those cues. That is very important, because the more because then you think in your mind, well, maybe they just didn't get my email. You keep emailing, or you keep showing up, and then you become the person that's like, make sure that person does not come up to my office, and you don't want that. Right? What you want is for people to, I would tell you two things, and I hope if you don't listen to anything else that I've said today, you listen to these two things, which is one, remember or be mindful of how you make people feel when you leave the room. It's very important. Even if they don't like your material, people can always grow and get better at what they're doing. But if they don't like you, that's not going to change, right? Like, so make sure that you're not a nuisance, that you're not someone that people feel like you're a hard person to get along with, or you don't get it. You'll hear that a lot as well. And then the other thing is, try to understand indirect feedback, because that is how feedback comes to you. In Hollywood, it's very rarely someone tells you, this is what you need to do to get better, or this is what you need to do to get noticed. It's very, very rare that you get that kind of direct feedback. It's generally going to be indirect, and it's up to you to take it and to understand what they're saying to you. Hardest lesson I had to learn, by far.
Hi, everybody. It's Kay Stokes, General Manager and Executive Director of Dominion Television. Listen, thank you so much for watching our YouTube channel. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and tell all your friends about the quality Christian lifestyle content that Dominion TV has to share. Yebeshe Abio. See you again soon, and may God richly bless you. Keep watching.